must take your fingerprints for the investigation.
I imagine that I really don't have a choice for the requirements of the investigation, Inspector.
Thanks. Henceforth, I have a mandate and I represent the law. So no more evasive responses. What did Walter Jones tell you regarding his estate?
Yesterday, at the end of the morning, he referred to his will. He told us that he intended to do things in a way that was just and fair for everyone. I have nothing more to say on this subject, Inspector.
The items deposited in Walter Jones' safe clearly indicate that had he not been murdered, the marriage with Baina would have taken place, and you would all have been disinherited.
I was totally shattered to discover this. You know, Inspector, it wasn't always simple to see clearly through my grandfather's intentions. I certainly knew of a liaison between Baina and him, but I hadn't really understood its importance, I confess. I more or less understand the feeling of loneliness that must have weighed him down since my grandmother's death.
I heard that there's a chapel somewhere. Do you know where it is?
A chapel? I never heard any talk about it. Maybe Lorenzo knows something. It's he who built the tower, after all.
The autopsy is categorical. Walter Jones died from a bullet wound in his back, and not as a result of his fall from the Tortoise Belvedere. With all the doubts stemming from the circumstances, Baina has nothing to do with the death. Nevertheless, I would love to have your point of view on this.
Oh, you can see that I'm staggered by this news, Inspector. My grandfather was murdered. I don't understand anything anymore, I confess. I can only count on you to shed light on this business as quickly as possible.
What were you doing at the hour of the crime, around 11 p.m.?
It seems to me that I have already answered this, Inspector. You ought to go and have another look at your notes.
With regard to Walter Jones, everyone plays the victim. But some people didn't refrain from trying to make him fall from his perch.
Listen, Inspector, I have nothing to do with this. Billy and Sonia had their reasons, which I did not share. I can more or less understand them, but I don't subscribe to this type of method within the family. One can handle things in another way, it seems to me.
Well, if you had thought you would inherit, it seems to me that this is in a little danger.
I acknowledge that my grandfather's hostile and fairly backward attitude towards Christina hurt me a lot, and no doubt it distanced us from one another. Without a doubt, I am paying the consequences for it today at a high price, Inspector.
What did you get in return for rescinding that Walter Jones be put under psychiatric care?
I didn't sign this document because I was against Billy's and Sonia's idea to put my grandfather under psychiatric care.
What was Walter Jones' position with regards to your political career, Marco?
He was not interested in my career of late, Inspector. Grandfather thought Christina was a schemer who was bad for my electoral campaign, that she was, in a way, badly cast for the role, politically incorrect. He wanted me to break up with Christina. I could not bring myself to do this, Inspector. My girlfriend runs my career with verve and intelligence. We're a darned good team together, and it's out of the question that I leave her. You know, last month, Christina was subject to a terrible attack, but I refuse to believe that Walter Jones could be behind it.
I think that your grandfather was pretty unfair to your girlfriend. Christina seems to be very nice.
My grandfather didn't like Christina. For him, all girls from Eastern Europe were unscrupulous gold diggers. Unfortunately, it's no longer possible for me today to get him to change his mind, Inspector.
Do you think Walter Jones's fears about Christina were justified?
I owe a lot of things to my grandfather, and in the past he was an excellent advisor, but his mistrust of Christina was unfounded. You know, Inspector, even my electors are charmed by her. That said, if one day I had to choose between her and politics, you could be sure I would choose her.
This page from Jones's diary about Christina's aggression seems totally like a confession to me.
Yes. Of course, I had doubted the facts at times. I asked my grandfather for an account, but he always denied having ordered the aggression. I thank you, Inspector, for furnishing me with this proof. Walter Jones is dead. Peace be with him. But at least this sad affair has been brought to light.
Why did Walter Jones talk about Sonia's desire for revenge?
I remember Sonia's courage in defending our father, who had been humiliated by Walter Jones. I admire her enormously for having had the courage. My father, Edward Jones, was not a man of stature, you understand. For a long time, I admired my grandfather and despised my father.
You seem to me to have great skill as a marksman. Do you continue to practice this discipline, Marco?
This article is very flattering. I ought to know, Inspector. It's the press kit for my election campaign. It was written up by a very obliging journalist. I add that my drill sergeant liked me. He exaggerates my slight talent as a marksman. Today, I've certainly lost the touch. I've not fired a shot in a long time.
What could this bottle of flax oil have been used for?
I haven't any idea, Inspector, and I would ask you from now on to stop bothering me for every little thing.
This family photo is very touching. I imagine that you learned to shoot because you have a gun in your hands?
This photo reminds me of the most beautiful moments with my grandfather. I remember that he gave us small camp rifles and took us to the foot of the acacia trees to shoot at little green monkeys that were stealing our provisions. It was a little barbaric as a form of entertainment, I give you that.
Why does Clara speak about having to dutifully respect your choice of living with Christina?
Clara is very nice, but maybe a little narrow-minded. My sister-in-law has the usual prejudices against girls from Eastern Europe. Nevertheless, between Christina and me, it's true love.
Lorenzo told me that you are as venal and tyrannical as your grandfather.
Lorenzo doesn't like anything that is contrary to his creative ravings, Inspector. That's all.
According to Billy, Walter Jones did a lot for your political career.
I admit, Inspector, my grandfather was very interested in politics and generously financed my campaigns. I understand this could have made Billy jealous, but after all, isn't it normal that a grandfather helps his grandson in an enterprise that is certainly more laudable than a hand of poker?
What do you think of Christina?
Meeting Christina was one of the most important events in my life, Inspector. She is my soulmate, my feminine other. We are in total harmony on all counts.
Do you know who in this tower knows how to use a gun?
The architect, for sure. I was able to watch him once. From the window of his studio, Lorenzo Battaglieri was shooting down gulls that were in mid-flight, and I can confirm, Inspector, that he was a top-class shot.
Did you see anyone in the library the evening of the murder?
No, I am unaware of what happens around me when I'm asleep, Inspector.
I understand.
Who is a good shot? Lorenzo, Marco, Noland, Billy, and Sonia are good shots.
Lorenzo and Noland are very good shots. As for the grandchildren, it's Grandpa Jones who educated them. A special mention for Marco, who even distinguished himself in the army thanks to his talents as a shot. Billy's the only one who couldn't be trigger happy. Anyway, that's what he says. Gives us a good handful of suspects at any rate.
I'm delighted to see that things are moving well, Jack. Choose among your three suspects. You'll find a skillful gunslinger who used the weapon of the crime the evening that Walter Jones was sent to the kingdom of the dead.
It's nothing. This inquiry. I'm empty. Come on, it's time to go to the restaurant to question these good people.
I'm asking for your attention, please. I have some essential information to communicate to you. You all know that the archipelago was hit by a hurricane last night. Well, this hurricane damaged the structure of the tower. This morning, I noted many cracks in the lower floors, particularly in the suites you're occupying. Stones of the foundation and many walls were weakened. Know that a part of the electrical circuit is no longer working. It's therefore very urgent that we evacuate these suites. I would ask you to immediately pack your things and move to the heliport lounges. I know we'll be less comfortable there, but at the very least, we'll be safe. And that's what is of the utmost importance. We will then be evacuated to the island of Saleh. As you might suspect, the authorities of the archipelago are overwhelmed. They're giving priority to the inhabitants of the islands that were the most devastated. There were some dead and many injured. Please don't give in to panic. Let us all remember that in this catastrophe, we were lucky, very lucky.
Inspector Norm. Inspector,
What happened to you, Noland?
I have some crucial revelations for you, Inspector. I know who the murderer is. I can't tell you like this right now. I have to confirm some details, you understand. So, I'll tell you everything tomorrow morning, without fail.
Very well. So be it, Noland. If you cannot tell me now, you'll tell me all this tomorrow morning. What a darn day. Let's hope tonight is less catastrophic than last night. Where might I be able to sleep? Oh, well, I think I've seen worse. I'll have to brush my teeth and then to bed.
Hi, Jack. It's Reeves. You okay?
You're asking me if I'm well? I was just woken up by a small earthquake or something of that sort. This tower is going to collapse if this continues. I'm not liking this at all, Reeves. You have to evacuate us as soon as possible, or else it won't just be a murder that you have on your hands, but real bloodshed. And me included.
Calm down, Jack. Calm down. Is everyone alive?
I just woke up. I still haven't seen anyone. Things are okay here, but I think that there is terrible damage elsewhere in the building. Reeves, I'll take a look around and I'll call you, okay?
This storm has wreaked havoc in the entire archipelago, Norm. 11 dead on the island of Mahu, crushed by a shed that collapsed. I don't have a precise count yet of the injured. We had to evacuate from the other islands to the hospital in Saleh, but there's a lot of them. And I'm not counting the 100 or so who are without shelter I have on my hands. The number of houses and huts that were destroyed is daunting. And we'll talk again soon, Jack. All this mess, I forgot. How's your inquiry coming along?
Don't worry about it, Reeves. You know Noland, Jones' attorney? He promised me a momentous revelation this morning. Nothing less than the very name of the murderer.
Oh, yeah, that's something. Jack, I have to tell you that we can't evacuate you right away. The helicopter's busy for the moment with emergency rescues. The 3 rescue speedboats are a long way from Sagarra, places where people are most isolated. We're organizing our missions, keeping in mind the people who are in maximum danger, you understand. But I'll call you as soon as I can do something for you all.